before Jesus, he will say, did you feed the hungry? Did you clothe the naked? Did you visit the prisoner? And it will not be a question of whether I wear uniform or Orthodox or Anglican. Did you do what I asked you to do?
Whenever I ask someone to do a job of any kind, the first reply is, it's impossible in Russia. And I know it's not impossible in Russia because I have been able to accomplish a great deal of things that people have said are impossible.
Despite all the failures of the communist system, 5 years ago the vast majority of Russians had a regular wage, cheap housing and free medical care. Today the economy is in free fall, the country bankrupt. Inflation runs at over 1,000% a year. Begging has become a way of life. Some 3 million Muscovites now depend on pensions worth less than £2 a month. In the last year, hundreds of religious groups, once banned, have flooded into this economic and spiritual vacuum. Among them is the largest religious social work agency in the world, the Salvation Army. It's led in Moscow by a remarkable couple, Sven-Erik Ljungholm, a former business tycoon, and his wife, Kathy. In a single year, they've accomplished what many Westerners, as well as Russians, would have thought impossible. They work from an office provided by former communist officials at the heart of the Russian government.
We are very grateful to the professional volunteers in the Salvation Army for organizing in Moscow and other Russian towns free food and distributing really essential things like clothes and shoes.
Including their parents who are in jail here.
Today, Captain Ljungholm is negotiating with the assistant governor of Moscow's oldest prison as to how the army can best help its 5,000 prisoners. So far, they provided food, blankets, mattresses, and over 6,000 New Testaments.
And it's good to see you again. I regret that you're still here. But we're here now to complete the distribution of the Bibles that we promised you. And also to install the light bulbs so that you can read the Bibles that you'll be getting. And I would commend to you the New Testament, which was in large part written by a prisoner. And his name is Paul.
About 70 men are packed into a cell built for 30 or 40. They sleep in shifts. Poorly heated in winter, the cell is stifling in summer. The only facilities are one stinking lavatory and sink. The Bible was once regarded as subversive, yet the army now expects to give a New Testament to every prisoner in Russia with official approval.
I consider, and this is my own opinion, that it's necessary to allow people to believe in God. It's up to them to decide for themselves. Faith is not something that can be banned. It must be encouraged. One can see the results. People find consolation in God. This can be seen in the way they behave in their cells. We support the Salvation Army.
The Army's also negotiated official approval for weekend passes for prisoners, and it's setting up a support group for those released and a newsletter to help maintain family links.
Let me just tell you a little bit about what we're doing for your families, so you know that we're helping to take care of them.
A Christmas party is being planned for their children.
And they'll get a gift from the Salvation Army, but on the gift it will have your name.
This is the first time something like this has happened in our country. It really helps some people who have a strong belief in God. It helps them in their belief in the future, giving them hope for something better in this life. It makes life easier for some of us. I think that this is one of the good armies in this world, one of the good armies. All the others are futile. I like people who do not lose their sense of spirit, even in such difficult situations. Ljungholm is a happy, normal person. He never complains. That's how I see him. The most important thing is that he is businesslike. If he promises to do something, he will.
До свидания.
It was at Butyrskaya that over 70 years ago Salvationists themselves were imprisoned. Some later died in Siberian labor camps along with many other believers. There was no place for religion in the communist vision. Many believers had their homes ransacked at night by Red Guards. Among them were Captain Jungholm's grandparents, forced to leave Moscow in 1918. They kept a diary.
Family tradition here calls me back to do something like this. And as I read this, it's a kind of textbook. The conditions are so uniquely identical to what they are today. Talks here about wanting to open a soup kitchen because people are standing in line waiting for food. Speaks about the need for shelters for the homeless and then a difficulty in finding space or having the government provide property. Same things we're going through today.
On July the 6th, 1991, 68 years after the army's expulsion from Russia, their grandson led its proud return to St. Petersburg. The international leader, General Eva Burrows, had decided this 6'7" entrepreneur was the man for Moscow.
The door of opportunity to the Christian religion is open now, and we don't know how long it's going to be open. So we must take the opportunity. And whilst we can get in there and proclaim the gospel, we've got to do it.
My marching orders, along with my wife's, were go to Moscow and open the work. Go open fire. Open fire against the devil. Do battle with the devil. Do battle with everything that is of the devil. Poverty, homelessness, alcohol, drug abuse. Anything that has to do with pushing people down from what God had intended them to be.
My husband and I were so excited to come here. It seemed to be the center of the earth, and we had just a few things with us, and we said, right, how do we get started? And we just took one step at a time.
We had a Toyota van, and we had $200, and we had an apartment that was lent to us. We were like foxes without a hole, as Jesus said. Going to one of our soup kitchens, our feeding programs. We have 38 that we operate in Moscow, serve about 12,000 people a day. And some are operated by the Army, some are supported by the Army, and some are coordinated by the Army. The difference is that the city government has responsibilities for about half of them.
Some of those being fed are refugees. Some 12,000 have flooded to Moscow, many from former Soviet republics. Moscow City Council is refusing responsibility for them. Fortunes can be made selling food on the black market. So far, the army's brought in 3,000 tons of free food. How can stealing be prevented?
Well, we can do one of two things. We can pull our food out and find another restaurant, or we can ask the city government to remove the director of that particular soup kitchen or restaurant, and we take it over.
It's not a soft line you take, is it?
Well, it's not, but this is not the time or the age to take a soft line. There's a lot that needs to be done. There are a lot of people suffering here.
Captain Jungholm is certainly no pushover. Today, he and his wife, an accountant, earn only $30 a month. But 10 years ago, they were living out the American dream. His salary as a top airline executive was over $100,000 a year.
We lived very comfortably. We had the horses and the hunt club and the golf clubs and the Mercedes and the Volvo station wagon, all the perks that you were supposed to have. I had a private plane, which I flew to work every day and sometimes on business elsewhere.
We were just about to buy our dream home. It had beautiful pillars and a big yard to keep our horses, and we had it all planned, even a staircase up the back way for the maid, which we had never thought of, but since the stairway was there, it was a possibility.
I was conscious of suffering as I traveled, seeing people hurting, and finally saying to myself, what am I doing? Sitting in first class on a plane, jetting around the world, a lifestyle that's foreign to my upbringing, getting out of the plane in Calcutta and seeing beggars, or in Johannesburg or in New York City. And I think just the difference, I finally said, this is not me, that's me, that's where I belong. When my wife and I walked into the divisional commander's office and said, here we are, can you use us? And about 6 weeks later, I sold my third of the airline, my interest in the airline. Sold a Mercedes, sold a house. We had an apartment block that we owned. We sold that.
Actually, it wasn't as difficult as I thought it might be. If I had planned it, probably it would have been difficult, but it wasn't my plan. It was God's plan.
I could easily have remained or become a committed Salvationist and played in the band and marched on the streets and given my testimony and flown my private plane. But that would have been the end of my religious experience, not the means by extending it further.
Day in, day out, the Junghomes work to overcome the inertia of the Russian system in deals over food and property for army and community use.
This is very much a place where you have to think on your feet, where you have to act boldly when you have an opportunity. What I do have to remind myself of all the time is, don't go for the deal. Go for ethics. Do this in the proper way. Do it so it's to the benefit of both people. This is, at the moment, a city where, unfortunately, many Muscovites are being taken. The Russians are very intelligent people, but untested and have not been out in the world, so to speak. There are many people who are taking advantage of the situation in Russia, the unsophistication, if you will, the unprofessionalism of the Russians. And they will be hurt. Many are being hurt already. So while we bring, I think, street smart to Russia for the Salvation Army's good, at the same time, I think we can lend some of that to the Russians to help protect their interests here. Something we did not expect to have to do.
The National Church is the Russian Orthodox. For 70 years, it was forbidden by the Soviets to do any charitable work. Individual priests are now setting up food programs, some of them with Salvation Army and other church help. But so far, there's been no joint project at the national level.
At the moment, in our country, we need any kind of humanitarian aid we can get. We are very grateful to whoever it is that provides help to our people. We are grateful to the Salvation Army for that. But I'd like to say that we would be grateful if they were to try to communicate with other Christian denominations in Russia.
The church plans to run a hospital and a convalescent home, but it's already having to pay for the rebuilding of thousands of newly opened churches. To fund the new work, even the church is going into business with a bakery.
Because we have a very poor society, we cannot collect money from people for our charitable programs. Also, business is young. It is only just beginning to work. And our businessmen do not sense the need to give to charity, and they put everything they get into their own pockets. They do not understand the notion of donating to charity.
Others searching for but not obtaining business sponsorship at a time of economic collapse are the administrators of this institution for 400 handicapped children. Today the Army's bringing in sheets. In 6 months, it's provided 3 months' food. The lift's broken, so some children never get outside. They lie in bed week in, week out.
When I came here the first time, I noticed they didn't have clothes on. They were in undershirts and things, and we knew we could help with that, and now clothes are coming from the West, so it's a vast difference from when I was here 6 months ago.
Natasha is 17. She has cerebral paralysis.
Hello, Natasha. I think she gets good care. She's not afraid of anyone here. She actually looks for the nurses to come and help her, so she's not afraid of the people here. So I think it's a medical problem.
She looks like a skeleton, though.
Yeah, she does. Many of the children here are just skeletons. I try to look at the children that I have the opportunity to meet and just give them a few minutes of joy. That's my goal. You know, we can't conquer the world. We can't even conquer one hospital most of the time, but I think my goal is to just let that child feel important for a few seconds, if nothing else.
Нет, там ничего, вот книжка твоя, смотри, давай читать будем, да? Давай?
I think it can be very effective only because they have something to hold on to. Food is something they need, and it disappears as quickly as they eat it. But if they have a book or something to look at to spend the hours that they have to sit in a hospital or in a children's home, they'll remember that someone cared about them a lot longer.
Amir is 10. His mother tried to abort his birth by taking drugs. What did he make of the gift from the foreign visitor?
It's a very good book. It's about God and Jesus Christ. It tells everything about Jesus Christ.
Did you know about Jesus Christ before? Had you heard about him?
Yes, I have a godmother and she told me all about Jesus Christ.
Like others, Amir has been baptized into the Russian Orthodox Church. To many Orthodox, the Salvation Army's evangelism is rather less welcome than its practical help.
Russia does not need enlightening. It is sufficiently enlightened already. There are enough working Christian movements in this country which lead people to salvation. To introduce something new and to adopt a different approach to Christ and the Gospels would lead to confusion rather than unification. Imagine if Great Britain were suffering material difficulties and that some Orthodox missionaries were to turn up from Russia together with humanitarian aid, and that they would introduce Orthodox culture and start to preach orthodoxy to the British, completely ignoring the Anglican Church and other denominations. That would be bad form and unchristian. I would say that the same is true of the missionary activity of the Salvation Army.
Миссионерской деятельности армии спасения.
But the fact is that Moscow is the fastest growing branch of the Salvation Army in the world. By the end of this year, 1,000 Russians are expected to have become soldiers in Moscow alone. At their dedication, they point upwards to God. They range from psychologists to retired Red Army officers. Some 40% were atheists before, the same percentage Russian Orthodox.
For several times I was in Orthodox Church, but I didn't understand this. It was difficult to me. And when I came to the Salvation Army, teachers explained me what does it mean God, and other things. And today I want to become a soldier. This is a very wonderful day in my life, I'm sure.
Now I'm very glad that I have a chance to help another people and to love my neighbors, because I think that the Salvation Army gave us the chance to show our love to each other and to show how God loves people.
At the Sunday school, led by a former communist youth leader, the uniforms of the once compulsory Children's Communist League, the Pioneers, are now transformed into Salvation Army kit.
I was really involved in the Pioneers. I believed. But by the time I had grown up and worked for the local Communist Party, I realized that it was all lies. After Salvation Army Sunday School, our children will go on to become soldiers in the Salvation Army, and they will have no regrets. They will be happy because God is in their hearts and souls, and the charitable work of the Salvation Army is a part of them.
Like all religious movements, the army is attracting saints and sinners, eccentrics and workers. It looks solid enough. But without the Jungholms, could it all collapse?
I'm working very hard at stepping aside to reveal Christ rather than me. I'm very conscious of my strong personality, if you will. It's difficult to be 2 meters tall and be in the background. It's difficult to have the kind of background I have in education and just have it put aside. I know I have a certain style and charisma that some people find attractive, and I have to work constantly, not very well, but what I'm conscious of having to move that to the side so that what I leave here when we leave Russia will be Christ, not some personality or some crusader. I don't want to be the hero that people look at. I want Christ to come through.
To keep up the momentum, the Youngums work up to 18 hours a day. Even their bedroom doubles as an office.
We get home around 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night. We work different shifts. You could say my wife works one shift. She gets to bed around 1 o'clock in the morning, and she has responsibility for sending the faxes and getting messages and things out. The phone lines are open from midnight to 9 in the morning, and I get up generally around 4:30 or 5, and I will type some letters or fax what she was not able to get out at that time. Chaplain Ray from Texas.
But the most difficult thing is the stolid immovability of so much in Russia.
I know it's not very holy to be angry, but the frustrations are tremendous here, and I get angry. I can't help it. It's just the way it is. But it's funny, the people react to anger in this country different than they would react in another country. Here, everyone is angry when they talk, or so it sounds. It seems like they're always fighting with each other, and they're not. It's just the way it is. So I think I've picked up the Russian ways.
On the regular Thursday night soup run, the Army's volunteers soon gather a curious crowd. The hat badges say who they are. The word spreads. Along with the tea is a religious word, an invitation to a service perhaps. One never comes without the other.
We give a lot of things free. We give out candy to children and say, come to Sunday school. We give out food at the train station and say, come to church. We give out a magazine and we say, come to Christ. Read this magazine and come to Christ. And then one day I was confronted about this. Is this a good idea that you give things away? Isn't it telling a wrong message to people? And you know, we shouldn't do that. That's a false message. And I thought to myself, there are a lot of people that would agree with that. But I think of Jesus when he died on the cross and he gave us freely himself, freely, no strings attached. And it's the message we're giving. We're giving a candy to a child, no strings attached. But if you want to know more, you come and ask me.
An appeal is now out worldwide for the brightest and best of the Army's officers to come to Russia. As the Army moves in, the entrepreneur is moving on. His marching orders now apply not just to Moscow, but to wider Russia.
I'm a man of action. I'm a man who thinks on his feet, I think. I need someone behind me, certainly, to pick up the pieces and to take care of it. But I regret and I'm afraid that with the wave of reinforcements will come the wave of red tape. Will also come this tendency to settle down. The church has settled down around the world. And I hope that part can be kept at abeyance for many, many years. And that the wave that comes in will be people who are pioneers, who are interested in evangelizing Russia, not in some future career within the Salvation Army, not in making name for themselves within the Salvation Army, but are here for the people of Russia.
Okay? Хорошо. До свидания. Пожалуйста.